YouTube fam, how y'all doing? It's your Uncle Tim. This is Uncle Tim Rants and Reviews, a channel where I rant and I review. I'm your host, Uncle Tim. Man, collecting toys right now in 2025 is nothing like collecting toys back in 2000. I'm not gonna even go before 2000. In 2000, collecting toys was fun. They were everywhere. There were stores that just catered to toys. And, you had liquidation stores that got them in groves. And you were able to pick what you want. Hell, you could go into any damn store that sold toys and find them on a shelf. Now, with the invention of YouTube and eBay, all of this stuff that we called hobbies, now all of a sudden they're a business venture. So all of a sudden we're competing against all these other people just about toys, comic books, video games, gym shoes, Funko Pops, small electronics, gadgets, die-cast cars, man, Legos, dude, cologne. You're competing with all of these other people to get the stuff you like. And now it's like the hobby done changed. It's so business oriented, it doesn't seem like the fun is still there. And don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about quitting anything, but I'm just saying the feeling is different. It don't feel the same. It felt back in the day like you go buy toys, man, and you just smiling. Even as a whole grown ass man back in 2000, I was happy to see the stuff. I was happy, I was asking some of the other adults who bought toys, what was their strategy on getting stuff. Man, I'm asking questions because I didn't know. I was just picking up shit loosey-goosey, like I do now. And they broke it down to me. They said, get what you could afford. Get what you like. Stay within your price range. Don't overextend yourself. And I was just sitting here listening to the old heads talk to me about collecting, man. That's the wisdom that I want to impart on a lot of y'all, man. Stay in your price range. Stay within your budget. Having a budget and when collecting, man, is a good thing. Because it lets you know. I noticed some people, man, could spend $500 in a month and won't blink an eye. Dude, I'm not one of those people. Dude, I spent some good money buying toys a month, when I was doing the eBay and all of those other online services. Dude, it was crazy. And when my wife said cut that shit out, it got cut. Why? Because I realized I'm looking at what I saved now opposed to what I was spending. I'm like, oh man, no. And I realize now, you have to look at all of this stuff. It plays a part in your collecting, man. When you feel you done paid too damn much, you start feeling upset and angry when you look at the toy. You like, man, I don't even find it fun anymore, man. My whole thing is, man, I love to buy stuff. I love to be in the moment. I love to be spontaneous when I'm buying stuff, impulse buys, like certain things that I pick up, like, some of the Sonic stuff, man, it was a spur of the moment. But once I started putting the stuff together with other stuff that I got from the line, it made me feel real good. I was like, man, these are some really nice pickups. These are some really nice toys. That's how I shop. And, I feel a lot of other people shop like me. I'm not one of those people that go out and try to get, the most expensive item, the most item that will wow everybody. I'm not trying to do none of that. I'm not trying to get all the new exclusive stuff so I could be the first one that have it and show everybody. Dude, that ain't don't do nothing for me. That's just draining my account. That ain't doing nothing for me. Clout for 3 seconds ain't doing shit for me. What is that doing in the long run? Not too much. A lot of people don't watch a lot of reviews. They may watch some of the pickups you got, sparingly, but, think about it. The money is in, to me, it's just consistency, man. I look at the toy market now, it's so different. Back then, there were so many people creating toys, and it was so fun. You had so many toy manufacturers creating toys. Now you don't have that many toy manufacturers. You got a select group, and that's it. You got Hasbro, Super 7, Mattel, McFarlane. And you see where I'm going with this. There's still more than that, but You got what, Playmates, NECA, but still, how far are we going with this? These are questions that we should be asking ourselves, man. You know, like I said, shit don't really make sense sometimes. You be sitting back thinking to yourself, this ain't making no sense. You know, the toys now, you know, they had exclusives back in the day, just like they got exclusives now. But back then, you were able to get the items. You know, the baby boomers weren't going after the toys that Generation X was into. Why? Because Generation X, these toys came out with us. And, you know, now we're just reclaiming a part of our childhood. Years when, you know, times were different and, you know, we really felt good about where we were at in life as kids and, you know, being safe and seen. You know, now you're a grown ass man or woman with means and, you know, money and, you know, space. You could buy some stuff. And, you know, that's how a lot of people see it now. You know, you could get stuff at this particular point in time. And that's how my collecting works, man. It's not like I didn't have this stuff when I was younger. Not this exact stuff. I had toys and stuff when I was younger. But, you know, at the end of the day, I had a lot of stuff, bro. You know, and this is why I think this happened the way it was. You know, at one point in time, man, you know, the toys were just part of my identity. And they still are now. You know, collecting is a part of who I am, man. You know, that's why this channel is what it is. We may rant our ass off. I ain't gonna lie. We go all the way down the list with the rants. But right now, you got to think about it. Shit done changed. And you feeling it. You feeling it real hard. You was having $4 toys back in 2000, bro. You had like the highest toy was like $10. Seriously. A lot of the McFarlane stuff at KB Toys were marked down damn near for like $4 and stuff like that. And you were able to, dude, I was picking up so many Spawn figures, bro. So many other toy lines I was picking up. I had so much shit. It was just that crazy from 2000. Dude, because again, my money wasn't that strong in 2000. Well, yes it was, but it wasn't as strong as it is, you know, like now, you know. 2000s was, you know, those kids were still young, so I didn't have a lot to push in it. But right now, man, over the course of a couple of years, man, 3-4 years, man, we blew up around here. This channel been around for what? This particular channel, I think, been around for a year or two, at the most 3. We over here doing it. And the reason why I'm bringing all this up, because over the course of the time as we've been talking about toys, you start noticing different changes. You notice that certain toy lines are pretty much fading away. You know, when you start seeing Transformers, man, you gotta go to the store like when stuff drop. You gotta get ideas from people. You gotta get there and you gotta ask questions, man. You gotta ask when they stock come in. You gotta be at Burlington, Ross, DD's to find them. You gotta find some of those knockoff Constructicons, you know, that create the giant Devastator that are yellow. Those look cool as hell. My thing is, man, you got to go to these places in order to find this stuff. This stuff is not found at regular places, bro. It's just not. You got to really look when you are a collector. You got to try different places. You know, the reason why I don't do a lot of vintage toys, man, because a lot of those to me lack articulation. The articulation that I come to love and, you know, like. A lot of the Toy Biz toys, man, I'm just not feeling those anymore. You know, the original, like, you know, Toy Biz stuff. You know, not the Marvel Legend line that they started, but the ones before that. Man, think about it. You remember them. Toy Biz was the shit. Then you had other companies, man, that created so many different awesome figures, man. Now those companies are non-existent anymore, man. And you just sitting here thinking, like, damn, whatever happened to Chase and, what was it, Jason and Royal Warriors? What was that, Knights of the Round Table? King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Then you had, what's those guys that had the They had like the big old signs, and you know, it was 3D, and they come off the board, you know, whatever the sign, and you supposed to turn whatever it was. There were so many different toy lines. You had what, Thundercats, Silverhawks. You had biker mice from Mars. You got all this stuff now, but the biker mice from Mars now, dude, none of this stuff look like it's even quality material. You had Toxic Crusader, you had the Turtles, you had just every Power Rangers. You had so much of stuff to sink your teeth in, and you were able to find the stuff without having to hit online services. Man, the cars, the 118 cars, they used to sell them at KB Toys for cheap, man. They were like what, 2 for 10 or 3 for 10 or something like that, and 124s were cheaper, man. But those were deals, man. And I understand those stores are not able to come back, and they wouldn't be able to exist in this type of environment. But I'm looking at Toys R Us, man, and I remember I used to go through the store. That's when I started getting into Zoids back in like 2005 or 6. I was buying Zoids. 2004, 5. Dude, I had like the whole damn toy line of the Zoids. I was getting them from Toys R Us. I had the Ultrasaurus I got from KB Toys, man. I had all type of shit. KB Toys was the shit. Then I was getting them from Family Dollar. It was crazy how all this stuff worked, man. But nobody ever seen any of that. Nobody ever seen how this worked. It's real, man. And I gotta say it, man. You gotta call it for what it is, man. At the end of the day, shit, I stopped caring about a lot of stuff. You know, I started looking at collecting as now being within a budget and being happy to be there, man. Collecting don't have to change. Sometimes it changes for the better. You know, all that stuff that you was buying at $30 and $40, you like, man, yeah, I'm not feeling that no more. I don't think I could afford any of that anymore. You know, $40 toys, you know, you buy what, 5 of them, that's $200. Bro, come on, miss me with that nonsense. $200 on toys, man. 5 toys at 40 a piece. 40 times 5 is $200. You got 5 damn action figures for $200. You come in a house like that and they looking at you like, what? What do they do? Are they Chucky dolls, the big ones that walk and talk and run around and shit? That's what they thinking. But no. See, this is why I say with the invention of like eBay, YouTube, I basically put the hobby on a decline and made it more into a business. Everybody trying to make money off of everything now. And you know, you go to a yard sale, a garage sale, man, they upcharge you. And it's just real. Because they realize, look, why shouldn't I get this money? And I don't blame them. But to later, fam, peace out.